All right, guys, so those of you in photography, you are going to now um, take some pictures with the camera. And this tutorial is going to show you what you do after you take those images, how to get those images saved onto the computer and then uploaded into Photoshop and do some basic things with Photoshop. So what you're seeing right now on the screen is a picture of me holding a camera, and this is obviously the bottom of the camera, and what you will need to get is the SD card that's inside of the camera. So after you open up this flap here, this is the battery of the camera and this is the SD card right here. So in order to get that out, you have to push up on it and it will pop up. So those of you who have a Nintendo Switch, it's the same principle for getting the game cartridge out. You just push up on it and then it will pop out. So after you push down on it and it pops out, you need to take that SD card out. Each SD card is labeled to match with the camera, so we need to make sure that each card returns to the camera that you are using. And then what you will also need is this SD card reader. So your MacBooks don't have an SD card reader on them. Mine does, but yours does not. So these readers will allow you to put the SD card in and then insert this into your USB port on your Mac to get your images. So you put the SD card into the reader just like this. You'll remove the cap and then you'll plug it into the side into your USB port. Make sure that it's pointed the correct way, facing up. And it just goes in just like that. And then what you're going to see is a screen that will pop up, or you should get a couple things that pop up. You could have something like this on the side. And if you don't have that, you'll need to come over here to your Finder. And it'll come, it should show up over here as Untitled. So you click on that. You'll have two folders that pop up. You'll want this one here, it says DCIM. So double click that folder to open it up. And then you'll want this one here, it says 100 Canon. And all of your images should be on there for you to use. So what I recommend is creating a folder on your desktop to store your images, because you want to make sure that you have a nice, easy place to get them. In order to make a folder, you're going to right click on the screen, click on New Folder. You'll want to title that. So I'm going to title this Photography Pictures. I already have one here, so I needed to differentiate which folder this is. And you could individually drag the pictures that you want and put them over there. But it's much easier if you have multiple pictures to just drag a box around them and see how it grabbed and selected all of those. And then I'm going to go ahead and get a few more, so hold on. I'm going to grab those. Then you take those, tells you I got 20 pictures, move it over there into your folder, and it's copying. It's not going to delete, it's just going to make copies of all of those pictures that you have there. So if there are any that didn't get over there that you want, you can grab those individually, drag them over to the folder, and like I said, it just makes a copy to put in there. So now you can go ahead and close this folder out. You have your pictures here in this folder that should remain on your desktop. So if I close that, there it is. Open it back up, and there they all are. So now let's figure out which picture you want to use to put into Photoshop, or what images you want to alter. If you can't see the image like this, if it looks more like this screen here, then you just need to click on this button here. It shows you a larger image, a larger icon of it. So you can get a better idea of exactly what that image was that you took. So now we need to open up Photoshop. So I'm going to But let me show you another trick. If you didn't know this, if you right click and you say clean up, and just you can clean up by name, and look how nicely, those of you who are like me, little OCD, like everything to be nice and organized. That's a good way to do it there. You can rename these images. They're all going to end in JPG. That stands for JPEG, and that's just the file format that the canons that we use will save the images as. They're just one of the many ways that you can have a image saved. We don't want to do any of the other file formats because they could take up too much memory space while we're working on them. So don't do a raw image. For those of you who know what that is, don't do it. We aren't going to worry that much and take up that much space right now with those things. All right, let's get to Photoshop. So go over to your Launchpad and find your Photoshop. It's going to be this one right here with the PS little blue, and open that up. Give it a minute. Okay, so right now we have nothing going on. So we're going to go ahead and do File, New. You don't want to just drag your image in. We want to make sure that we have a background to put it in. So that's why you always go File, New. And then we are doing photography. So you can go to Photo. You can decide what size you want your picture to be. You can just do the default size if you want, but if you know, if your image was taken landscape, which means it's more horizontal than vertical, then you would probably want to choose one of the landscape images, or excuse me, the standard sizes for landscape that they have. And if you know that your image is more vertical than horizontal, then that's going to be portrait. So if you notice, there are standard sizes that photos are usually displayed, and that's to keep the normal ratio of how we see the world. So you have a 2x3, 4x6, 5x7, or 8x10. So these are all the standards. And then if you have portrait again, it's 2x3, 4x6, 5x7, and 8x10. So those are all in inches right now, and they're 300 pixels per inch. So I think I'm just going to do the 4x6 landscape to start mine. So if we check over here, we can title this. So if I know that the image that I want to first use, let me see, I'm going to do, which one looks nice? I think I can just do this one of the yellow stairs. So I'm going to title this one Yellow Stairs so that I know what this image is. So our units are in inches. We can keep it like that. It's already going to be in landscape for me. And we'll keep our resolution at 300 pixels per inch. You can change your background color if you want here. So you really just get these two options for now. I'm going to go ahead and do black for my background color for this one. And then as soon as you're ready, hit create. And there you go. There's your background. So now to get our image in. So you could just pull this over so I have access to it, and you can grab it and then drop it in. If you don't want to do that, you can always just do insert and go from your file. And as soon as you have your picture in, I'm going to go ahead and go to full screen. You have the option of moving it. So you see it didn't quite go all the way, didn't cover my background. So I'm going to move it over a little bit. And you see this X that's on there? You have to tell the computer that, yes, okay, I want this. So in order to do that, you either click on this check mark here to say yes, or hit the enter button. And if you don't want that image, so you decide, nope, that's the wrong one, then you hit this button here. But I'm going to go ahead and hit my check mark, and it puts it in there. So now the things that you can do in Photoshop with your images is really quite amazing. We don't have time to learn everything with it. But you can see over here in the Learn, there are ways to remove objects. You can duplicate to kind of add and fill in. You can change the color. You can combine images. So you can do all of these little tutorials when you have the opportunity, when you have time. But right now, what we're going to do is start doing some work on it. So once I clicked on it, it gives you this message that this is a smart object. So basically, if you've ever taken a screenshot of something, it just captures it as it is, and you can't edit anything on there. So in order to edit this, we have to rasterize it. So in order to rasterize, we're going to say, okay, because computer's telling you, saying you need to rasterize it. So it went ahead and rasterized it for me. But from now on, you need to do a right click over here on the name of the image, and you'll see this option here, rasterize layer. So you always want to make sure you rasterize it if you want to change anything with it. Okay. All right, so now that I've rasterized it, let's see some of the things that we can do. So if I select everything, it's going to select my entire image. And if I want to just work on changing the image, like adjusting it, we go over here to adjustments. So I can adjust the brightness of it. Maybe it's a little too bright. So you see I lower it, it's taken some of the light out of there. Obviously if I go the other way, it's going to brighten it up even more. Reset that to 0. The contrast is going to either tell the differences more dramatically in the colors or less dramatically, kind of blurs it a little bit more. So I'm going to go back to 0 on that again. You want to make sure that this preview button is clicked so you can actually see what's happening as you're changing it. And if you like it the way you want, you can hit OK. If you want Photoshop to just do it on its own, you click on Auto and see what its suggestions are. So it's all computerized. So you can see that it lowered the brightness by 21 and increased the contrast by 13. I really don't care for how that is, so I'm going to hit cancel. So it'll go back. So something else that you can do is if you want to just maybe like this section over here is a little bit brighter than what I want, you can modify just that section. In order to do that, what you'll want to do, I don't want anything selected right now except one part. So I'm going to grab this tool here. It's your quick selection tool. Actually, I'm going to show you something else. So to get rid of these are called marching ants. To get rid of these marching ants, you need to do Command D, and that deselects that area. Excuse me. So now with my quick select, I can grab certain things. So it's showing you a little tutorial here. You can grab just a section that you want. So I'm going to grab right over here where it's really bright. And sometimes you want those marching ants to go all around the parts that you want. Sometimes those marching ants will get a little crazy. Say, I don't want this section here. So what you could do is hit the minus. Say, nope, I don't want that part there. Take that part away. Or a shortcut command, and go back to the plus for add. So if I have all that section there that I don't want, instead of clicking over here, hit the Alt button on the keyboard and notice that it changes it from plus to minus. So now I can click and get rid of those sections there that I don't want. So now let's go over here to Image, Adjustments, Brightness. Now it'll just change that section that I have. So notice how I change that area that was selected. Change that brightness a little bit. Change my contrast a little bit. And now it's just working on that section there. So this gives you a lot of flexibility in working with specific areas of your image. So get rid of my marching ants, just do Command D. There you go. Oops, I moved my picture around, that's okay. So this is the movement tool here. You can also, there you go, showing you just need to move things. This one here is just gives you a, instead of selecting a whole area, it gives you a rectangular selection of it. You can crop an image here. So if there's more than what you want on here, like if I wanted to take this section off, let me show you that trick. So I got to get rid of my marquee tool. So I just did Command D again. So you see the sections here for cropping. If you want to maintain your aspect ratio, you want to do it from the corners. It'll keep that ratio. Otherwise, it's going to, you can have it either be too long or too squat. So the corners helps you maintain your aspect ratio, and then going from the tops or the sides will not maintain it. So if I want to keep my aspect ratio, let's say I want to take it down to here. There. So if you get it the way that you want, notice that we have these 3 by 3 squares on here. That's to keep your rule of thirds. And in photography, the rule of thirds, we'll talk about a little bit more in composition, but your rule of thirds is, in order to have an image that looks correct, you will want one area that's emphasized to be in one of these squares, or 1/3 section here, or here, or here. So you want to keep that rule of thirds where you have an area of emphasis or focus that's going to be either in one of these individual boxes or the third layers going either vertical or horizontal. As soon as you have it cropped the way you want, you have to tell the computer that yes, this is what you want. So either hit your check mark or enter. You'll notice that it changed my image. You can use this tool here, the eyedropper tool, to pick up colors that you want if you want to then end up changing something. So I picked up that blue, and then let's see, we get our paintbrush. And it's on my blue right there that I picked up from the wall. So your paintbrush you can actually use to paint onto your image. So over here are the controls. So every time you click a tool, you're going to have some of the tool, the functions of that tool will come up here. So the size of my paintbrush right now is 14 pixels. And the opacity is how much it will fill in. So at 45%, that means it's less than half. If I change that to 100, that means it's going to cover 100% of the pixels. So it completely covers it. Those of you who are in graphic design will know this trick. If there's something that you mess up on, you don't want this, then you hit Command Z and it takes it away. Something else though, that if I mess up and then mess up again, and I do Command Z and then Command Z again, it just brings it back. So it's a little bit different than in Adobe Illustrator. If you want to get rid of both of those, you have to do Alt Command Z. Hold down Alt and Command and then Z to go all the way back to where you were before. And I could keep doing that again, and that gets rid of my cropping. I want that back, so I'm going to step forward, which would have been Shift Command Z. So now with your paintbrush, like I said, you can paint things on. I'm going to make mine a little bit bigger. So let's say if you want to completely cover something up and paint over it, you can zoom in too, so Command plus will get you zoomed in. No, it's a little too big, but let me show you what this will do. You can just go in there. You can really zoom in just to the pixel level and make your brush the size that you need just to cover in. And the more that you click on it, the more of a layer it will show. So if I didn't have my opacity turned all the way up, so let me show you what that'll do. So see, it's a little lesser amount, but the more I click on there, on that one area, the darker it gets. So this is just a cool function if you want to go in and kind of airbrush your work. And this is a way for you to do it. I'm just coloring all that in. This is not going to look pretty right now. I just wanted to show you some of the things that you can do with Photoshop in your images. All right, let me zoom back out there. So you can see how I could, if I wanted to go back in there and just cover that whole thing up and make that look like that's supposed to have been blue wall the entire time. Obviously, I would go in and do a little bit better job than that, but for simplicity's sake, I'm going to just do it this way. All right, there is an eraser tool, and an eraser tool will erase pixels. So that is erasing all the pixels, and you'll see the black because behind is my black background. So that's why you see the black back there. I'm going to do Alt-Command-Z to get rid of all that. So yeah, if you use that eraser tool, it will erase your pixels. Something else that's cool is the gradient tool. And with the gradient tool, what you're going to do is right here you see the colors that it's going to put on there. You can have different options for how it will put your gradient on your image. But then you're going to come over here and you see these crosshairs. You draw the direction you want your gradient to be. And there it is. That's my gradient. Obviously, that's covering the whole thing up. I don't want that. So I'm going to Command-Z to get rid of it. The gradient's really nice if you have a section that you just want to cover up. So let me show you with my selection tool again. Grab this part. Now let me do my gradient. And you'll see that it's just going to put the gradient on that section that I covered up. Oops, see a place I missed. Let me try that again, make sure that I have all of it. Now, there we go. Now I've got that section there. You can put, this is a blur tool, so you can blur some spots that maybe, like if I wanted to fix over here, I could blur that. This thing is really cool. This is the spot healing brush tool, so if you're taking pictures and then somebody's got a stain on their shirt, oops, I got to get rid of my marching ants. Come over here, click on it, and the computer is going to guess at how it needs to be fixed. So sometimes this works well and sometimes it doesn't. It all depends on if the computer is able to recognize that the color you want is correct. So let's see what it does with that. See, it thinks it needs to extend this gradient a little bit more. And it's getting rid of my yellow. So this is kind of cool for when you're doing portraits and stuff. If you want somebody to not have a spot on their shirt or something like that. All right, let's see, what else could I show you? Pen tool, it's a lot like the brush tool, except it's more precise. Path selection tool, where you want the a section to be. This is your hand tool, is just basically for panning, removing certain parts, sections. You can draw lines, that's what the line tool is. You can actually, if you right click on here, you can do shapes and draw shapes onto your image. You can put a text box on your image. Dodge tool there, so lighten something up. Is there anything? stamp. So you can see how you can grab something and then just add more to it. Told you the eyedropper tool for picking up colors, the lasso, just grabbing. It's like the quick selection tool there. So anyway, there's all of that. You can also come up here and apply certain filters, blur. You can pixelate something in different ways. You can sharpen it. You can add noise, dust. Let's see, under image, so you can change things to grayscale instead. No, I don't want to do that right now. You can come back over here to adjustments. You can change how vibrant it is, the color balance, change it to black and white. The hue and saturation is really kind of cool. So you got to choose something first. So I'm going to choose this section over here. And go to your image, hue and saturation. Move this over so you can see what happens. Make sure it's on preview. And watch what happens when I change that hue. So it will actually alter the color range of what your image is. Change saturation, however much of that color you want in there. The lightness, how dark or bright it is. So you can see with all these tools you can make some really cool images or do some cool work with the images that you take. So that is now a little stylized image of the yellow stairs that I have. So your job now is you're going to have to save this after you get some of this work done. So I'm going to do Command D again to get rid of those marching ants. We need to save it, so we go File, Save As, and it's going to save it as a PSD, Photoshop document. So remember before it was a JPEG. You can save it back as a JPEG, but if you want to go ahead and continue work with it in Photoshop, then you can save, you want to make sure you save it as a JPEG. And then you just hit save. And let's see, where did I send it to? Good question. I send it to my documents. It's probably here. Nope. There it is. Yellow stairs. So I saved it in my documents. And it opens it back up as a Photoshop document. If I want to go ahead and save it as a JPEG, and let's say I want to send it to my desktop so I can add it to my pictures, save it there. Keep your quality with whatever the standard is. There we go. Close this up. And there is my image as a JPEG. Now, I cannot alter this, but if I opened it back up into Photoshop, then I could, or as a Photoshop document. Then you can add it back into your folder there, and there you go. So your job now is, after you've taken a few pictures, you're going to choose a couple that you really like, and then you are going to put them into Photoshop and do some fun things with them, that kind of like what I did with the yellow stairs. You can make it really artistic, or you can go really wild and crazy with it, or just try to fix it up if it was maybe too shadowed and you want to try to work on adjusting for shadows or brightness, that sort of thing. All right, guys, have fun. Can't wait to see what pictures you take and how you decide to alter them in Photoshop.